Hey everyone, it's Zoe here. How are you? Welcome to another live Q&A. I'm just going to check that you've got my microphone from my ears because I think the sound quality is better, so hopefully that's working now. Today, I'm, as per usual, going to wait for everybody to log on. So if you're watching the replay, skip forward maybe 3 or 4 minutes. If you are watching live, what we're going to talk about today is slider foods, what they are, what to do about them, and then we're going to go through, I've got a question or two to answer, and then a bit of an update what's happening in the group. So Francine's here. Hey Francine. Hey Sue. No, Sue, you can ask questions here, so just pop them in the comment section and I will answer them. I'll see them as I go through. So I usually come back to questions after I've talked about the main topic for a little bit. Nikki's here too. Hi Nikki. Denise is here. Welcome Denise, your first one. It's lovely to have you as part of the group, and especially it sounds like Kathy thinks it's lovely to have you part of the group. There's a few of you up there now, which is lovely. Ruth is here. Hey Ruth, how are you? How are you? As per usual, guys, if this is your first one or you're not quite sure, just pop any questions you have in the comment section and I will get to the those questions sort of after we've had a chat about slider foods. Catherine's here too. Welcome, Catherine. So that's good. We've got a few more people logging on. If there's anything that you want me to address in upcoming posts or live Q&As, then do you want to just pop them? You can, even if you think of it at a random time, if you want to just send me a direct message or put it in the group, then more suggestions the better. I want to make sure that it's really relevant to you. So all of those of you that are new, just feel free anytime. Don't feel like any question is a silly question. Just pop them in the group and we can go from there. So you're watching, but I knew you were watching anyway because you'd already commented. Sometimes the feed on this thing on my end is a little bit strange. All right, so shall we talk about slider foods? Maybe can you hit like if you have read the post, or if you have maybe a good idea about what slider foods already are for me. And while you hit like, I will wait a minute and say hi to Candice, who's just logged on. Welcome, Candice. Nice to see you. If you don't have any idea about what slider foods are, can you hit like now? Okay, so we've got one like. Cool. All right, so Maria's here too. So I'm just going to start talking a little bit about slider foods and what they are. I wrote this post because I think it's something that we sort of talk about indirectly, but I see the term slider foods all the time, especially on forums like Facebook groups, and especially to do with when they're like US based. So if you're in any of the other Facebook groups or you've come across anything, you might have heard the term slider foods. Really what they are is, I think it's come because they kind of slide through you quite quickly. They feel like they slide down your esophagus into your stomach and slide out of your esophagus, slide out of your stomach really quickly, essentially not filling you up for very long. So they're easy to eat and they don't fill you up for very long. The other thing about slider foods is they're usually pretty high in fat or sugar and therefore calories. So they can be the types of foods that can actually stop weight loss or lead to some weight regain, because you can graze on them all day and then you don't kind of alter your main meals or how much you're eating later on in the day because you're not full for very long. So the reason that they are sort of slide through pretty easily is they're usually processed and they usually don't have very much in the way of those filling nutrients like protein and fiber. Okay, so often, especially I find if somebody's restriction is really tight, or if you're struggling a little bit with keeping food down, or you're struggling with perhaps eating a bit too fast and then bringing food up, like Jenny said that she still vomits once a week, and sometimes if that's happening more regularly than that, you can actually go towards those slippery foods, those slider foods, because they do go down easily and you're less likely to throw them up again. They're less likely to make you feel uncomfortable. This used to be a really big problem with the band when people couldn't eat a lot of good quality foods like salad or bread, pasta, rice, fruit, those sorts of things, because they would get stuck in the band. So what we would call it is maladaptive eating, when you go towards those foods that are slippery, like processed foods, and then you would go towards that because you're actually hungry and you need some nutrition, and you know that they go down easily, they don't cause you too much of a problem. The problem with that being is that long term you end up taking on more calories than you would if you were eating more nutritious meals, and you end up sort of not feeling as satisfied with your food, and then ultimately end up either regaining or not losing as much as you could have. So some examples of slider foods. If you have a savoury tooth, you might go for things like crackers, especially stuff like Jatz or Ritz crackers, potato chips, corn chips, pretzels, anything salty but quite easy to chew up into nothing, kind of melts away. Cruskets I would even put in here. And sweet slider foods are things like sweet biscuits, cake, chocolate, ice cream, sweet yogurt, okay, or flavoured milks, or drinks like milkshakes, smoothies, thick shakes, okay. And the reason that you will often go for a sweet slider food is actually because you're thirsty, because a lot of those sweet slider foods are actually kind of wet. And if they're kind of wet and melty, like ice cream, yogurt, milkshakes, then you're probably going towards them because you're thirsty and not hungry. So that's something just to keep an eye on. If you're always craving wet, melty, sweet foods, then usually it's because you're actually thirsty and not hungry. So what should you do instead? I would suggest really just first things first is actually becoming aware of those slider foods that you eat. Is there a time when you are more likely to go towards a savoury or a sweet slider food? Or is there a time, maybe it's time of day, or maybe it's an emotion that you're feeling, maybe when you're feeling stressed or anxious? And is there something else that you can choose instead? And the more nutritious something is, the more satisfying it's going to be. So the more it's going to fill you up, and then the less likely you are to be able to come back and graze later. All right, so more nutritious options would be things with protein and fiber. So fruit, nuts, something like Greek yogurt, something like maybe cheese on your cracker, or adding a bit of peanut butter with your apple, or having a bit of a leftover meal, or having, what else? I don't know, even say like a little mini bit of sashimi, or a tin of tuna, or a protein ball, or a protein bar, or some sort of dried fruit and nut mix. Any of those are going to satisfy you more than those really kind of empty, nutritionally empty foods that I mentioned before. So tell me what you think. Is there a time when you tend to go for those more less nutritious, more slippery foods, so slider foods? Or is there something that you go to more often? Like, I've started eating the Cobb's popcorn, the cheese flavoured ones, and I found that if I don't watch it, I can actually almost eat a whole bag of them and I'll feel full, but I won't feel like I want to be sick kind of Christmas Day full. So it's really important to kind of pick up on that habit when it happens. So is there anything that you've noticed? Is there anything that is your go-to grazing food or stress eating food? I would love to hear. And just in the meantime, so Maria said that she's developed a weird addiction to potato sticks, because she says weird because not usually a big potato chip fan, can eat loads, can't have them in the house, it's the crunch. Yes, and Catherine has said chips as well, and any of those is what we call extruded food products. So any breakfast cereal that is shaped like something, like a Cheerio or a Nutri-Grain, or like a Crispix, any of those, and then, so that's sort of the sweet end of things. Anything with that is shaped like something in the savoury end, like potato sticks, some of those kids' snacks in the little packs that are like little shapes. At work the other day, one of my bosses brought in these pea, I should have taken a photo of them. They're pea snacks, and they look like green peas, so long and skinny and green coloured, and they are salty, and they're sort of a savoury snack, and they're meant to be made out of peas, but they don't fill you up at all. You can just eat them and eat them and eat them because you're not getting the fibre, you're not actually having to chew your food. They just put them on your tongue and they just dissolve. And they're the things you really want to stay away from. So Ruth has said premium crackers as well, Crustkits. So Denise, the interesting thing you've said about that, so I don't particularly like Crustkits, but if you are going to eat Crustkits, definitely eat it with protein or healthy fats like you're doing. So you're having Philadelphia cheese or avocado, and you're still pretty early on after surgery. I think you said about 6 weeks. Eventually, I would prefer that you swapped from Crustkits to something like Vita-Weats because there's more seeds in there. It takes a little bit more chewing, but they do actually still break down. So they will still chew up into nothing. You just need to spend a little bit more time chewing. There's a lot more fibre in something like a Vita-Weat than there is, or a Ryvita, than there is in a Crustkit. Okay, so the key to that is if you're going to have something like those premium crackers or Crustkits, then make sure you put something nutritious on top so that you can't just keep eating and eating and eating. You're not just snacking on them. Beck, Cadbury Furry Friends, just love 1 or 2. Odd because I was not a big Chocky fiend pre-surgery. It was more fried carbs, so the savoury stuff before that. And that's a big thing too. Tastes change a lot after surgery. So often I will find people come in and they say, oh, I'm just really craving ice cream. I've started having Whispers, or I've started having those schmooze frozen, frozen juices. And usually, again, going back to what I said in the very beginning, when you're craving something like that and it's partly becoming a habit because it's at night time, it's after dinner, but partly perhaps because you haven't drunk enough water that day and your body is actually telling you after you've had dinner that you need to drink something, you need something wet. So same thing, Cassie, love Paddle Pops. At least the thing with the Cadbury Furry Friends or the Paddle Pops is that they're small, so you're controlling the portion size. So that's better than having a big tub of ice cream and being able to just kind of sit with that and maybe go back for more and go back for more and go back for more over a long period of time. And Maria loves those peas. Maria, do you know, I can't remember what they're called. They were the weirdest things. I hadn't seen them before. And Denise, I'll come back to you in a second, Denise. Sue, crackers with rosemary flavour, choc bits and ice cream, and Ryvitas. So Sue is using Ryvitas instead of Crustkits, but crave crunch. And I think that's actually really common as well, especially, I know Sue, you're not soon after surgery, but Denise soon after surgery. Sometimes you just get to the point post-op where you're at like 4 weeks. Even I found, at the 2-week mark, people are like, I just want to chew something. That's fine. Just make sure that you're putting something nutritious with it so you're getting some protein or some fibre from it as well, or some healthier fats, okay? And Denise, you've said that you're trying to avoid too many carbs, so pasta, rice and bread are out as they feel too heavy. That's also very common, especially at 6 weeks post-op. So stick with the protein and the veggies, really try to get the nutritious foods in. Don't worry too much about the carbohydrates for now. And then come back to them. Keep trying them later on if you want, just to keep expanding the foods that you can eat, okay? And it will keep changing over time, so you will find that it gets easier and easier and easier over time, and the amount of food that you can eat in terms of the variety of foods you can eat will increase, and so will the portion of food will get a little bit bigger over time, okay? Any more questions about slider foods? Does that make sense? Is there anything else that you want to know about them? I just wanted to talk about them a little bit because I feel like they come up, and I saw a post about them the other day in one of those Facebook groups, which, sometimes the questions in there make me either really sad or really mad, actually, that the information has got out in the wrong way, or that people are still very focused on rules and counting and feeling I guess restrained or restricted in terms of what they can eat. So I like to kind of pull out some of those posts sometimes and just write about them so that it kind of sets the record straight, because I don't think there has to be an absolute ban on slider foods. It's just that they really shouldn't be in your everyday diet. As Cookie Monster says, they are a sometimes food, okay? So Denise has just asked, should custard and yogurt be limited then? Usually have one for breakfast or as a dessert. Not necessarily. So the benefit of something like yogurt is that you get the protein, you get calcium in, and you need that. The problem with custard and the sweetened yogurts is that you also get a lot of added sugar in some of those products. So look for a reduced sugar one or a no added sugar. I had last week the 5 a.m. yogurt. They have a flavoured version. The one I tried was mango, but it's no added sugar. So it actually tasted significantly less sweet than most of the other flavoured ones, but you did still get a fruity flavour. So I would go for something like that if you are wanting a flavoured yogurt, or go for a Greek yogurt or a natural yogurt, but add some fruit in there so that you get some flavour from the fruit, or add a little bit of like some oats or some muesli so that you get some variety in there. So don't limit them, especially not yogurt. Custard, again, has more protein in it, but you need to try and find a reduced sugar version, or make it yourself from custard powder, and you can actually use a little less custard powder. Okay, and you can use super milk to make custard if you're making it from home. So super milk is high protein milk, where you put some skim milk powder into the milk, 1 tablespoon for every cup, and then that means that you've got extra protein in your milk, which is a little trick. Okay, so we've had a few other people come on since I last said hello to people. So we've got Naomi and Sarah and Sue, which is awesome. Thank you for joining. For those of you that have joined, just pop a question in the comments section if you have something you want to ask, if you have something you want to suggest as something, maybe a topic for me to talk about in the future, just let me know. Francine has said there's a new yogurt on the market called Iggy's. I haven't seen that one, but I have seen this Skyr yogurt. I don't know how you pronounce it. And that one's the Icelandic yogurt, and they are a little bit higher in protein. So maybe what I'll do, because I don't think I included them when I did yogurt, so I might actually do a little update coming up in terms of the new yogurt types that are on the market. So Icelandic yogurt is one of those. And Cassie said you like to freeze small yogurt pouches and cut the top off to eat for dessert. That's an awesome idea, Cassie. Really, really good. You could even just tip yogurt into those little, the kids' icy pole molds and use that instead. Or you can do something like where you freeze bananas or you freeze raspberries and you just blend them up frozen and then serve that with a little bit of Greek yogurt. So it's like an ice cream as well. Pronounced skier. Good. Thank you, Sue. Excellent. All right. Beck said she's going to try some custard instead of the furry friend. Definitely a better option, Beck. So still a sweet, still a dessert, but you get much more out of custard than you would get out of having a furry friend. Okay, but sometimes you just need a furry friend, and that's okay too. All right, and Denise has been having Valia. Valia is a good option too. It is higher in sugar, but it is also quite high in protein, and it's got added probiotics in there as well, so that's a good option too. And Sarah's here and Bri is here too, so welcome, guys. All right, speaking about food products, I had a question. I'm just going to bring it up here from where did you go? I had a question about whether sandwich thins were a good option instead of bread. So I'll find who it was from in a minute. Absolutely, they are totally fine, and actually sometimes feel a little bit easier to eat, so a bit lighter. If you toast them, they actually kind of end up like almost like a cracker or a crisp bread really. So they are a good option. Some people find that still a sandwich thin is a little bit too heavy, a little bit too sticky, it gets stuck. It's similar to like a mini tortilla, which would be another option, because you can get high wholemeal options of tortillas or multigrain options of mini tortillas now, but some people still find that they are a little bit sticky. So just try it, give it a go and see what happens. For some reason, I cannot find who it was that asked that question, but I will find it in a minute. Oh, it was Tammy. Okay, Tammy asked about sandwich thins. Are they a good alternative? So yeah, absolutely fine. Tammy, just go for the ones that is the highest in fibre. So go for a whole grain option. And with any of you, if you're choosing a bread, you want to go for grains that you can see, and you want to go for high fiber, or a sourdough or a rye. So even though you can't see the grains, they're high in fiber, they're actually slower to digest, they're lower GI, so they're going to fill you up for longer. And what I like about some of the rye or the sourdoughs is that you can usually chop your own slices, so you can cut them a little bit thinner, or you can start at the ends where you've got the smaller slices as well if you buy something like a Vienna. So that's a good option. Okay, so any other questions, pop them in there. What I'm going to also just go through what has been happening in the group. So I posted on Friday a new meal plan if you want to have a look. There's some new recipes in there. When I put it in the Facebook group, I just copy and paste the recipe into the Word document and save it as a PDF. So it doesn't look very pretty. There's no pictures. If you want to see a picture, you can go to the member section of the website. And if you go to the member section, I think it's like the third menu option down, it says sleeve friendly recipes, so you can go in there and you can actually select the recipes based on your stage. So if you're at the soft food stage, if you're at the puree stage, if you're at the fluids, if you're pre-sleeve, like pre-surgery, Optifast diet stage, or if you're just long term. Okay, so that is there for you. Let me know what you think, if you would find it helpful. I haven't been including nutrition, but I can. So if you would find it helpful to know how many grams of protein, carbs, fiber, etc. is in there per serve, then let me know and I'll do it per bariatric serve, which is sometimes the problem with doing those meal plans is that the recipes might make, because they're designed to have leftovers or designed to freeze, then it might make number of serves. So for example, I put together a shopping list, but I can't give you quantities because it depends on how many people you're cooking for. So I think actually the next meal plan, I'm going to do a single serves one. So that will be, some will still be leftovers, but it will only make, say, 2 bariatric serves, and then I'll be able to give you a specific shopping list with the quantities. So let me know if that would be helpful or not, or if there's anything that you'd like to see with those meal plans, because I'm still playing around with them. We've only had 3, it's been new this year, so I'm up for any suggestions and all suggestions, okay? Cassie said, try 1/2 of a sandwich thin with Vegemite and a poached egg on top. Sounds like you've done that one before, Cassie, and it's been a good option. And again, really good example there of how to build a good bariatric friendly meal, because even if you are going to have bread or rice or pasta, it shouldn't be the focus of the meal. You still want to have the protein, at least protein, and probably protein and veggies to make it balanced, because really you should be focusing on protein and veg as the majority of your meal. All right, and Denise has asked, is KFC potato and gravy a terrible option? I had one the other day and it was amazing. Look, it is not the best option, but I don't think that any food is out of bounds or banned forever, unless it's particularly due to a texture thing, like the stage of surgery, the stage you are after surgery. But it's not one that you want to be relying on. Okay, it's not great nutritionally. There's not a lot to it, and this would be actually considered one of those more slidery foods because it's so processed. It goes down really easily, and it's going to be high in calories and lower in protein and fiber. Okay, so Denise, what I think for you might be good just to go back and have a look on the website at the soft food options, because it sounded like from your introductory post that you're still struggling with textures a little bit. So if you need to stick on soft foods for another couple of weeks before you start to venture a little bit further, that might be a good way to go, just to make sure that you're getting the nutrition that you need, you're feeling satisfied. What can happen over time is if you are not getting what you need, like you're filling up on really small amounts of food, so then you're actually hungry and then you want to go and eat, so you're drawn to those foods like the potato and gravy because you're actually hungry and your body needs some nutrition. So it's understandable, and trying to figure out what works and what doesn't at this stage is really hard. And the others, I'm sure, hit like if it took you a while to figure out what worked and what didn't for you after surgery. Denise is at 6 weeks post-op. Sue, you've asked about Calorie King. Yes, so Calorie King is a good website. It's Australian, which is a positive compared to something like MyFitnessPal, which most of the nutrition info in there is American. The only thing with Calorie King is a lot of it still isn't accurate. So, for example, if you put a cappuccino in, it says you don't get any calcium whatsoever, but you definitely do, as long as it's made with milk, okay, which a cappuccino normally is. So it's a good rough guide. If you want to track anything or you want to work out how much is in a recipe, the best app is one called Easy Diet Diary. I don't recommend tracking all the time, but for example, I had a client the other day who I haven't seen for a long time, and we decided that she might just track for 2 days, 2 or 3 sort of typical days, sporadically throughout the week, just so I could have a really good understanding of what was going on. So sometimes it's good just for a bit of reassurance to track and make sure that you are eating what you think you are, and that you're getting enough, for example, protein, fiber, and you're eating sort of in the ballpark in terms of your calories. So Easy Diet Diary is the best one, and the reason that is the best app is because it's based on the nutrient databases that is used for all recipe analysis, or should be used for all recipe analysis, and is used for product labeling. So it's the most accurate, and it has a whole heap of Australian products in there. So it is a really, really good option. It's all come from a reliable source too. So the problem with things like Calorie King and MyFitnessPal is that I can go in and enter a food, and then it gets a little bit confusing in there because you've got lots of different options of the same thing. The only thing with Easy Diet Diary is it takes a little while to kind of figure out the way the search terms work. So if you wanted to put in a cappuccino, for example, you put in coffee, and then I think it would say something like based on milk, and then you would say what type of milk, and then you would say what size. Okay, if you were putting in milk, for example, you would type in, rather than skim milk, you type in milk, and then it'll ask you for skim. And it's quick and it's easy, but you just need to go for the food itself first. So chocolate, then milk, then dark, etc. Okay, so Easy Diet Diary. I'll post a link to it, but you should find it. It's available for Android and iPhone now, which is exciting. It's only just been made available for Android last year. Okay. So speaking of milks, that's going to be the next product review that I do. So I'm going to do a comparison and a bit of a guide to milk, because there are 4 million different kinds of milk, and I will give you a little bit of a guide to the different types of milk, and then also have a look for at different kind of novelty products. So for example, like the high protein milks that are out there, or if you're after one for cholesterol lowering. Okay, so there are so many different types, and I'll have a look as well at milk alternatives, so rice milk, oat milk, almond milk, coconut milk, those sorts of things. Okay, Sue, it's not just for Apple, it is available for Android, but when I was looking for it the other day, I searched for it on Google Play online first on the website, and then it came up that way. So the client I was talking to about it was having trouble searching it in Google Play directly, so we searched it on the internet version instead. Okay, so Christine's logged on. Hey Christine, nice to see you. Francine has asked, is it normal to fluctuate weight when you start exercising? I've put on 2 kilos since starting and my food really hasn't changed. Francine, it can be depending on the type of exercise you're doing. So sometimes if you are doing exercise, and usually if you've not been doing much before, you start exercising, even if it's, say, walking, but you're doing hills, or you're doing some strength work, maybe you're going to the gym, maybe you're doing some Pilates, some yoga, some body weight exercises, then you can put on weight because you are building muscle. Okay, the thing to look at there, even if you start exercising and your weight stays the same, if your weight stays the same or you put on weight, have a look at the shape. Has your shape changed? Like, for example, I put on muscle really, really easily. So my weight can go up, but actually my shape has changed. So I might get legs if I'm doing more cycling rather than more running. And that happens for me very, very quickly. And so some of us are what we call mesomorphs, and we put on muscle really, really easily. And so you can start to see that change really quickly. Some of us are endomorphs, and that's more round. It's harder for you to put on muscle. And some of us are ectomorphs, which are like the long, skinny people, and it's more difficult for them to put on muscle, okay? So you can still be carrying excess weight, like excess fat, but it's difficult to build muscle. It's also sometimes a bit difficult to build muscle after a sleeve because you aren't eating very much food, so your body actually kind of prioritizes your bodily functions, keeping you alive, making sure your organs are working, rather than building muscle. So it is really important that we try to keep muscle on after a surgery, because when you lose weight, you lose muscle and fat. And the problem with losing muscle is it actually slows down your metabolism, or what your body needs to burn when it's at rest. So it is important to try and keep as much muscle as possible. The more muscle you have, the more kilojoules or calories you burn at rest. Okay, so Francine, it'd be interesting what you could do and what some people have done. I know, for example, Jenny has had one done. You could do a DEXA scan. They are getting much, much cheaper and more accessible, and as long as you're using the same DEXA scan over time, you can compare the results, and it gives you a body fat percentage, a muscle percentage, and then a bone percentage as well. So it shows you also where the different sort of what your body composition is in terms of where you have muscle, where you have fat, and then you can actually see that change over time. So it's a really good one if you're just starting exercise and you want to know, is it working, is it changing, is your body changing, even though the scales aren't necessarily changing, or maybe they're going up. So the scales are fine, but they're really not useful. They don't tell the whole story. It's why I don't like scales that much, and it's why it's really good to actually measure some other things. Even if you did your waist circumference and your hip circumference, that would be a good start. Okay, you can usually tell by your clothes. So, all right. So did anybody have any experiences when they started exercising? Did your weight go up? Did your weight go down? Did your weight stay the same, but your body changed? Did your clothes fit more differently? I would like to hear from you. That would be great. All right. I'm just going to do a really quick run through of what has been happening in the group. So let me just bring it back up again. I've got too many notifications. Jenny, I downloaded your Sip Water extension on Google Chrome, and so it's good, but now it tells me all the time, and then I end up with lots of different notifications sitting up the top. All right. Okay, so we have had questions, and actually quite a few people have kind of commented and posted their experiences. And Sue, you posted something which kind of ties into what I was just talking about then with the scales. You got rid of your recording app and your tracking app, which is awesome. All right. Like I just said then, the scales don't tell you everything, and sometimes they can actually make you more anxious and more stressed and feel worse about yourself if you don't see them changing. And you can get a bit obsessed with watching that number come down and down and down. And when it doesn't keep coming down and down and down, which is totally normal, weight fluctuations are totally normal, that can actually, not seeing it come down, can cause you kind of distress and make you feel anxious, make you feel worried, okay, make you feel upset. So can you keep us posted with how you are feeling emotionally as you go through maybe the next couple of weeks, the next couple of months? Just pop in and post maybe as a comment to your original post whenever you feel like you've noticed something. I'd love to hear how it changes over time for you. There were quite a few comments on there which were really good. So if you want to have a look at that post from Sue, that's a really excellent one just to catch up on. All right. And Charlene was asking for help with quick and easy meal ideas. I posted some resources I've put together, but if there's anything that you guys are your go-to meals for when you're stressed, when there's too much going on and you just want something easy and quick and ready to go, can you post them to Charlene? It might be something that I can kind of compile a list of go-to recipes that are super, super easy. All right. And we've had a challenge this week, which was to take 5 seconds before you make a decision. The reason I wanted to bring this in, we actually had this sort of middle of the second half of last year. This one is really important. It kind of ties into the slider food thing. The reason I wanted you to take 5 seconds before you make a food-related decision, it works for other decisions, but before you make a food-related decision, is to kind of take stock for a second and go, is there a reason I want to eat that food? Is there something else I can do? Am I thirsty? Am I upset? What's going on? And then it's a little bit of awareness so that you can start to figure out what is going on and what you're going to do to troubleshoot to stay away from those sort of slider foods and what you can eat instead. Okay, so have a look at that challenge if you haven't seen that already. Lani posted her meal prep, which was good. Vanessa shared a few products, so the K smoothies, the special K smoothies. I saw them in the supermarket today too, so I'm gonna do a little bit of a product review on those in upcoming months as well, because there's quite a few now with the traditional Up and Goes, the Weet-Bix breakfasts, the special K smoothies, the oats ones. There's quite a lot there. Jenny's also posting a little bit about going back strictly to keto. So again, Jenny, post as you go, let it keep us updated. Absolutely fine. And I want you guys to feel like you can post your experiences and things that you're trying, whether they work, whether they don't work. But rather than just post them as something you're going to do, keep us updated with how they actually go when you do them. All right, because I think that's really, really important that we see the outcomes of those decisions and things that you try, and maybe they work, maybe they don't work, but that's totally fine. I've already spoken about the meal plan, which is there. Lots of you got active last week, which was excellent. Vanessa, I hope you're allowed to get back into doing your HIIT classes and that your shoulder is feeling better. It sounds like it's been a long time coming. And I asked for your help with protein powders. What do you use? What don't you use? Because I will do a review of protein powders coming up. That one is it is a really tough one. I did one for Catherine Saxelby's website a few years ago on protein powders. I can maybe dig up the link. We tried them all. We taste tested them. We gave them ratings for nutrition, for taste, for X factor. And it was just such a labor intensive post because there are so many. So we had to first of all choose them, whittle them down, and we went with the most popular one. So I want to kind of redo that with updated products. So if there's any protein powder that you use, can you scroll back through the posts and pop it in the comment section for me so I can look at it when I do it next time. All right, I think that they're the major things that we've been talking about lately in the group. We did have a post that Tina put there about cooking carbohydrate and letting it cool down and then reheating it. It is less carby as normally cooked carbs. So it's not less carby, but it has a resistant starch. It does change the molecular structure. So especially with things like potatoes, when you reheat them again, or even if you just cool them the first time, so you're making potato salad, for example, rather than eating potato mash or hot potatoes, it changes the molecular structure and it turns some of that starch to resistant starch. So it's harder for us to digest. It means it lowers the GI and actually fills you up for longer. So that is a good option if you want to try and see if you notice anything. All right. I've got one more question from Denise, and then we've been going for a while actually tonight. I've been rambling on. So Denise says some nights she's lightheaded when laying down or turning in bed. Is that likely to be dehydration or lack of nutrition? Denise, usually dehydration, especially soon after surgery, is the main cause for lightheadedness. The other thing to check is if you take blood pressure medication, often you will have lost weight quite quickly, and it means that your blood pressure meds are too strong for you. So you might need an adjustment in dose if you take blood pressure medication. It could be some other medications if you take them. So again, go back into your GP and just ask for a review of those medications, see if there's anything that could be causing that. Usually it is dehydration. So use the colour of your pee as a good indicator, or like how often are you going to the loo and what colour is it? Is it dark? Is it really sort of yellowy or browny? If that's the case, you're really dehydrated. What we want is like a clear sort of straw colour, light straw colour. So you want to be hydrated. So definitely have a check of your dehydration. If it doesn't clear up when you're more hydrated, then I would definitely pop in and see the dietitian again sooner rather than later. We don't want you doing things like falling over, okay? It could be a lack of nutrition, and they might want to do bloods on you, although it's hard to tell soon after surgery. If it's something long term, it could be a short term, maybe an electrolyte imbalance or something. So it's good to go in and check. Okay, so Beck's out. She's got to go feed her family. I've got to go feed my family too. I don't know if you heard that big crash before. That was Kat trying to get into the room and falling over the washing line. So that was good. He's obviously wanting some dinner as well. Let me know, as per usual, if you have any questions, if there's anything you want covered in the next one, and I will get onto it. So we will have a live Q&A coming up in the next couple of weeks. Okay, all right. I will see you soon. Bye, guys.